when did you first start cruising?
I first crossed the Atlantic as crew for John Knight on a boat called Arvincourt 2 in '64. So I've been deep water cruising now for about 46 years.
Wow. And it's interesting to imagine how the cruising life has evolved in those decades.
Oh yeah, it's changed enormously.
Yeah.
When I first went to the Caribbean, which was before I started cruising myself, my wife and I got into the habit of chartering on a boat on somebody's boat. You know, a captain that wanted to make a little money would charter a bunk or 2 bunks. And in those days, it was rare to see another foreign boat. There were some native boats, you know, and maybe 1 or 2 British or American boats, and that was it. And to give you some idea, the captain of the boat we chartered on, Maverick, he had a weather cloth that went along the side there.
Yeah.
And if another boat came and anchored him, he put it up, and on the weather cloth it said, "Yankee, go home."
Oh God, really?
So, because he did not like to be anchored near any other boats. Now, of course, you don't anchor anymore because the bays are so full of moorings, you know, that belong to charter companies that there's you and 500 other boats in the same bay.
Wow.
So it's changed enormously over those years. People have got a great deal more affluent in some countries. Boats like you see here are common. In those days, most people sailed boats that were 20 to 35 feet, maybe was a common length, 25 to 35. Now, of course, I would say the average length of a cruising boat is probably 40, like this one, 42 maybe.
Yeah, and much higher, much bigger.
And there's some much bigger, of course, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, and of course, along with the great increase in cruising comes the great increase in regulation.
Yep.
You know, charter boats now are very, very common for much of the Caribbean, even in the South Pacific. And they make sure that they get your money, so that, you know, it's difficult to anchor in many places now that were totally open before.
Wow.
Things have changed, but then also it's better in some ways. There are far more facilities. When we were first in the Caribbean, I lived in the Caribbean for a year. I took a leave of absence from the lab in '68 and I had a 35-foot boat then. And my wife and I and our one son that was born at the time, we lived there for over a year. And the only place you could ever buy anything that remotely resembled marine equipment was in St. Thomas.
Yeah.
Everywhere else was
nothing.
Sometimes unoccupied even. Some islands now that have hotels on them and private beaches. In those days that nobody lived there. And so it's I've seen a quantum change in my cruising life.
Wow.